Hi Internet, Wyatt with WT Farms here. We are starting a series on making a automated bale wrapper out of a 3-point bale wrapper. We're going to go through the process and logic of converting this here contraption into a fully automated system, including coding, part sourcing, welding, fabrication, testing, and final implementation. I'm not a software or electrical engineer. I am a handy farmer looking to save a buck. So don't take any of this as a, engineered or an absolute solution. Take it for what it is, a good suggestion. I think a good place to start is talking about why we wrap hay. You can see some in the background back there. We got a whole big pile over there as well. For us, the big thing, and there's lots of reasons why people wrap hay, but I'll talk about why we do it in particular. We're beginning farmers. We are all on 100% rented ground. We rent a little bit of barn space in a barn back here for our baler and kind of just general storage, but it's not anywhere near enough space for all of our hay. And because we're renting, we don't even have the option of building a barn somewhere to put up all of our hay. So we have just outdoor stored hay in the past, just leaving bales sitting out. There's a couple tucked in behind that hay stack there that are unwrapped, but generally speaking, the quality and volume loss of the forage that we saw was kind of unacceptable. I'd had experience with wrapped bales for doing haylage or baleage when I worked on a dairy farm back in Washington State, so I kind of knew what our options were. So the wrapping for us is primarily about protecting dry hay. That's kind of our target market. Most of the hay that we do is still dry hay, and we're just wrapping it to keep the rain off of it and to keep it dry, preserve it, both for sale and for feeding to our own animals. We also do some baleage though. So the first stack of bales that you can see back there, those are 30% moisture bales. I was able to put those up in 2 days. I cut whatever day it was, but I cut one day, and then the next day in the evening I was out baling those. You can't do that if you don't wrap those bales. The mechanism for, or what will happen to the bale if you don't wrap it in that situation, is it will basically just rot and it will become a junk bale. There's also the risk that it can catch on fire. For outdoor storage, we're not super worried about that, but it is a consideration. Hay will catch on fire if it's too high of moisture and it doesn't have any preservative or anything in it. So those bales, we wrap them. They're going to be the same quality when we open those bales as they were when we put them in. So that's a big deal for us. And the cost is not crazy to wrap. The wrapper itself obviously has some expense, but it costs us about $4 in plastic, not including labor, to wrap the bale. If you do the math on building a barn, you could never build a barn at that price point for that much per bale. So plastic is just a cheaper option for us. Long term, we'd much rather have a barn because I hate using how much plastic we do, but we work with what we got. So, some stuff we covered here already, but kind of the why of why you would want to do an automated wrapper system. The no barn, if you're out there in the general world, if you don't have a barn or you don't have enough barn space, wrapping is sort of your only option. You can go individual wrappers like what we got here, or you can go with the tube wrapper. It's just a different style of wrapper, but it does the same function. A big consideration is the equipment necessary. And I guess this is not why you want to wrap. This is why you'd want to go to an automated wrapper, if I maybe missed saying that. For an automated wrapper, you only need one tractor. This setup, running on a 3-point, you gotta have 2 tractors and you gotta have 2 operators. I am the only person full-time on our farm right now. My wife still works a full-time day job. She does work from home 3 days a week, which helps, but if we need to wrap hay, generally I gotta wait for her work day to be over and then I got to go grab her. So we're not wrapping until 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night. And that's kind of a really big pain in the butt. Not so bad when there's only 20, 30 bales. We could do about 30 bales an hour. So Tessa can just come by after work and we can knock it out really quick, and I can, have everything set up and be ready for her. But, a few weeks ago we did a custom job where we had to wrap 255 bales. We had to do it over 2 different evenings. That was 9 hours worth of wrapping work that we were doing after she got off her day job. That just really isn't super feasible to do a large volume of hay with. If it's just me tied up until 10, 11 o'clock at night, that's not that big of a deal. Like, I farm, that's just the name of the game. But we got dogs at home. We live half an hour away from where we farm. It really messes up our household rhythm and kind of drags life down when you got to do that repeatedly. When you're wrapping hay, timing is really important. You got some wiggle room, and if you're doing dry hay, you got more wiggle room. But if you're doing baleage, you really need to be wrapping that hay as quickly after you finish baling it as possible. If it sits for 36 hours, 48 hours, the bale starts to go oblong, and it does not ride in the wrapper very well. We've had some bales that we just couldn't wrap because they had kind of egg-shaped so much. And I would like to do more custom jobs where we go out and wrap for other people, but oftentimes I have to say no because the time getting everything coordinated for 2 machines, getting the wrapper out there just doesn't work because it's going to be 2 days after they have baled, or 3 days after they baled before I could get out there with the wrapper. Whereas if it's automated and I can just go out there with 1 machine, it's a little bit more feasible to take on that work. Personal sanity is a big thing. I personally do not sleep well when there's hay sitting out in the field unprotected. There's times where it's not too bad because it's, super dry. It's not going to rain for a couple days, whatever. But it seems like this year in particular, every time we've baled, it's raining the night that we finish baling. Some of our hay, we went and bought a giant tarp and we tarped it in the field that night, and I was out there till 11 o'clock to get it tarped. It was a big fiasco. So for me, when we can bale a field and get it wrapped that same day, how much better I sleep is worth a lot. Because it's really hard to turn around the next day and keep on the grind, keep on the churn when you're exhausted because you didn't sleep good because you were worrying all night. And it's not a good deal. And the biggest consideration, I think the thing that the vast majority of people who go with 3-point wrappers, the reason they pick them is the cost. This is an Anderson RB200. This is it's not the cheapest 3-point bale wrapper, but it's the cheapest of the commercial quality Econo Wrap company. They make a 3-point wrapper, but I have serious doubts about kind of the long-term longevity and functionality of that implement. The Andersons are kind of a tried and true. They're a pretty well proven piece of equipment. But the cost of this, brand new, I can go down to Owatonna, there's a dealer that sells them, and I think they've got them listed for $7,500. The Anderson automated wrapper, I think is the 580HS or something like that, I think is the model number. That right now, I looked at the price this morning, was selling for $48,000 before freight. That's $41,000 more than you would pay for this. That is a huge difference in initial investment. I for our farm, maybe 10 years from now that would be a good fit. I don't know, but certainly right now we could never justify that. And we're in the 400 or 500 bales wrapped a year range, where we really do need to make that step to the next size up wrapper. But man, even a cart style self-loading wrapper, a good used one's $15,000 to $20,000, and brand new, again, $30,000 to $40,000. That just really is hard to justify. But modifying one of these, I think can be done for $2,000. I don't know it for certain. I don't have all the pieces lined up, but I feel much more comfortable in putting $2,000 into this and maybe having a good automated system rather than $40,000. So now we get into the how part. You obviously need to have a 3-point bale wrapper to begin with. You got to have something to work with. I don't think you could custom build a bale wrapper like this for anywhere near the price of what they sell them for. And there's other options, like I mentioned, the Econo Wrap. There's cheaper options with the Anderson RB200 is, that I think the same principle as what I'm talking about here would work with, but yeah, you got to have this. You're going to need to do some physical alterations to this contraption. The big one is to dump the bale deck when it would be turned the other way, but to dump it, you lift up on the 3-point, and this contraption hinges down here and dumps the bale. When you go to an automated system, a big part of that is eliminating the need for a tractor to be sitting there to do this. So you need to add a hydraulic cylinder to lift this up. What I've come up with is a plate there and a stem coming up and a hydraulic cylinder mounting to this and coming up, and that would be what's going to lift the deck up. You gotta have the long enough hydraulic cylinder. You do have to either weld on or bolt on fixtures on both sides of that to make that work, but that's the first big alteration you need to do. The next thing you're going to have to do is some sort of frame or stand for this to sit on, or a trailer even. I'm not sure which way I'm going to go yet. Trailer would be really nice because I could pull it behind the pickup, but a stand would be easy because then I could just pull it behind the tractor, and it's maybe cheaper and easier. I don't know, haven't figured it out yet, but you need some sort of frame to sit underneath of that, because when this tilts up, you need clearance for that portion of the frame to go down. You can't just have it sitting on the ground and have that hydraulic cylinder. It won't dump the bale proper. And then we got to add some sensors. So there's already 2 sensors integrated into this. There's one tucked up underneath that cover under there that tells the controller how many wraps you've made, and there's another sensor that can tell when you've tipped the deck back to reset the bale count. But we need to add a new sensor that marks, I'll call it the home position. When you're wrapping, the deck is facing this way. You need a sensor that can tell when it's in the right position there. You also need a sensor at the bottom and the top of the hydraulic cylinder to tell when you have reached full extension. So the microcontroller knows that, like, oh, don't start the deck rotating if it's not all the way down. And the way I have it programmed, you know, the thing that tells it to go down is the sensor that it sees when it gets to the top. There's maybe other ways to do it, but I can't think of a way to do it without those 3 sensors. It may also need a 4th sensor on the deck. I don't know yet. We'll have to see how it all works out. We need some sort of hydraulic system. So the deck rotation on this machine is controlled by hydraulics that would normally get connected to the tractor. We're going to add a hydraulic cylinder to control the deck. We need something like a log splitter setup to control and provide power for all the hydraulics for this. There's sort of 2, if you were doing this always close to power, you could go with an electric pump system. That would be nice and quiet. I want to be able to take this out into the middle of a field and, you know, wrap out in the middle of nowhere with no power, so I'm opting to go with a gas-powered system. The important part of however you do it either way is that the hydraulic valves that are part of that standalone system need to be electronically controlled, because if you have like a manual valve to control it, it would defeat the purpose of not needing a second person. Someone would still have to stand here and run the thing, which would be nice. You know, it's one less tractor to need to run it, but we're going through all this trouble, putting all this money and time into it. We might as well make it so that you can just have a remote in the tractor and press a button to start, and it does everything else. And lastly, you need some sort of brain to control this whole thing. I have opted to go with a Arduino Uno R4. That's like the new generation of programmable microcontrollers. I really like the Arduinos. It's open source, so there's lots of like third-party options for it. The price is really affordable. I think I paid $30 or something for my Arduino. That's not including all the other pieces that are necessary to make it function completely, but that's pretty hard to beat. If it ever grenades itself, I can go get another one for really cheap. And I'm just a big fan of open source stuff. I think it's a great way to promote intellectual development across the world. So Arduino is what we're going with. It's just a good baseline, and that way I can also share the code that I wrote for it with you guys. If you have any interest, you can mess with it yourself. So I've kind of got this roadmap in my head of how this is all going to work. I'm going to do my best to take you guys along for the ride in this this little adventure. I really, the open source nature of kind of this idea, really want to make it available to other people, because if I can in fact do this for say $2,000, that's a pretty big difference for a lot of farms potentially. I don't know if I'd ever sell a kit for it, but maybe if it goes really well, I'd think about that. I don't have any set schedule or timeline for doing any of this. It's first week of August right now, 2025. I would be surprised if I have this thing fully operational by the end of this year. I'm sort of money constrained right now, where it's been a hard year for farming, and a lot of money's tied up in hay that is just not selling right now. So I want to do this as soon as I can, because I want to be able to use it, but also I got bills to pay. So we'll get to things as we get to them. The code stuff I'll be able to do here really quick, and some of the SketchUps of like the initial design for the modifications that need to happen to this. Some of that I already have parts for, so there's no money that's got to go out the door for that. But yeah, I'll take you guys along for the adventure. If you got any questions, any thoughts, comments, anything of that sort of nature, throw them down in the comments, and I'll do my best to keep track of them. And yeah, maybe suggestions are always helpful and stuff like this, because I'm sure there's things that I haven't thought of, but we just keep plugging along, trying to make things work. Thanks for watching.